Welcome to the Marketing Mindset. We do this every week to have a conversation about things that are happening in marketing. And this week we're talking about a topic that I actually really care about a lot. And it's the idea that big brands prefer small agencies. But first I want to recap some of the other marketing mindsets that we've been doing for the last several weeks. We started with a marketing tools, marketing mindset. Then we talked about the perfect marketing brief, and we actually posted an example. If you do a Google search for perfect marketing brief, then you get a chance to see a template that we created. We did one about measurement. We did one about the agency-client relationships, creative and inspiration, building great teams, empathy in marketing, brand voice and tone, and then today is why big brands choose small agencies. And you can see all of those past marketing mindsets by going to youtube.com/AgencySparks, and they're posted there, as well as on our Facebook page. So I want to give you a little background for this topic. I left Engage/Moxie. So Engage was acquired by Publicis in 2013 and merged together with Moxie. And it became clear to me that the holding company wasn't for me for a number of reasons. Great agency, Moxie's a great agency, it just wasn't perfect for me. And it wasn't the one that I had joined some years before. And so I had several offers from other agencies to help them grow. And I posted on Facebook that I was leaving the agency. And I got a message from a guy that I grew up with in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, named Joe Parrish, who said, "Hey, I'm running an agency called The Variable in Winston-Salem, and I'd love to have you come and help us with business development." And what I suggested to him was I wasn't going to go and actually work for The Variable, but I had this idea, and the idea was AgencySparks. So I met with his team January 20th, 2014, which was Martin Luther King Day, and talked to him about what AgencySparks was, and they quickly signed on to become our first agency partner. So I was excited to work with Joe and his team, and when I founded AgencySparks, there were sort of a couple of reasons that I did so. One was the concept of the specialist and the concept of the small agency, and the idea that small agencies had a special mojo that big agencies don't have in terms of the ability to be focused on a couple of key disciplines and not trying to be good at all things for all people. And then the other piece is that specialist marketing agencies are really good at doing work for their clients, but they generally were not that great at business development. So I wanted to focus on smaller specialist agencies with AgencySparks. Sorry for that. So we wrote a blog about, based on some interviews with clients and their experiences, and one of the things that we uncovered was that smaller agencies are more like business partners versus a vendor, and mostly clients develop much closer relationships with smaller agencies. And then it also leads to more flexibility when it comes to creating amazing work for the client. And so we wrote a blog post, why specialist marketing agencies are superior. And one of the things we said was that they are more flexible and less bureaucratic than big agencies. Now, obviously it depends on the needs of the client, which is the best fit for you. We actually even did a quiz about which kind of agency is the best for you. It was actually a blog post that was specialist versus generalist, which is best for you. So you can go back to our blog archives. It's agencysparks.com/blog archives and go see the quiz that we created. But again, when I founded AgencySparks and the premise of the specialist and kind of rooting for the small agency versus the mega holding company, that's what led me to working with The Variable and Brightwave and a couple of other of the early agencies that we started working with here at AgencySparks. And so recently, one of the founders and partners of The Variable wrote a blog post for a publication called The Drum. And The Drum is an advertising publication, I think only digital. And the title of it was Why Big Brands Are Increasingly Putting Small Agencies on Their Radar. And when I saw this post, I felt the need to share it with you all because it really helped explain why AgencySparks even exists. So Joe has always had a passion for creativity and advertising. He worked for some really large agencies, and he basically always wanted to put the focus on the client and come up with creative ideas and fun ideas and take some risks and chances creatively. The challenge is that big agencies aren't built for that kind of thinking. And so that's what prompted Joe to go and help found The Variable. So in Joe's blog post that we refeatured on the AgencySparks blog, he mentioned 4 key points that I'm going to talk a little bit about each of the 4 key points about why big brands are choosing small agencies. So the first point is small is the new big. We'll talk more in detail about these. The second idea is that big ideas come from small places. The third is that spend smaller, think bigger. So that's about stretching budgets, and we'll talk about that for a minute. And then the last one is small assignments, bigger ROI. So I'm going to start with that first concept, which is small is the new big. Clients want a real relationship. They want to know that they're backed by an agency and that they're the number one priority. The success of both the agency and the client need to be mutually aligned. And also small shops are generally more motivated to see the client succeed because they're invested in the business, and failure can be crippling to a small agency. Also, work isn't passed down to the mediocre C team within the agency because they don't typically have a C team. They're focused on just A players. And that's not saying that big agencies are completely failing at creating relationships, but smaller agencies have a narrower focus. The second thing is that big ideas can come from small places. Brilliant ideas come from small teams. Technology has kind of assisted allowing people to take on multiple tasks and responsibilities, cross-training, right? And one of the things that Joe Parrish says in the article is, look at your own career. I guarantee you that your best work came from fewer people on the team rather than more people on the team. So, and then the other thing is that ideas are fragile. They can be easily turned down before they're really developed to their full potential. And small teams have the intimacy to allow an idea to really grow and form. And then the last thing is that accountability, more people on a project often lead to somebody being less accountable to take ownership. And so if their name is not attached to the project, then they lack the motivation to really create something amazing. So fewer team members make everybody step up a little bit more. So the third idea was spend smaller, think bigger. Clients are looking to optimize and looking for cost-cutting options, and agencies have to spend really wisely, and they need to restructure their teams to be really efficient. Small agencies undeniably do this better than a larger agency. There's spend dollars have to be stretched because the budgets aren't tremendous. In fact, one of the things that Joe Parrish talks about in the article is the sunk cost fallacy. And the idea is that when you invest in a certain discipline and then you want to use them. It's the old concept that when you own a hammer, that every problem looks like a nail. The other thing is small agencies, business models are coming up with the idea and the plan, and they're partnering with best-in-class vendors for execution. So within a big holding company, often you're locked into using the partners and relationships within that holding company, versus a small agency isn't bound to those relationships. And then the last one is smaller assignments, bigger ROI. Clients are moving from an agency of record relationship, an AOR, to an ROI relationship, return on investment. And the idea is, rather than having one partner that's trying to be good at lots of different things, you can focus on getting the best return from a smaller partner. There's a lower barrier of entry for a larger client to try a smaller agency, especially on a project basis. So smaller assignments, bigger ROI. And the other thing is that big clients see ROI when they go outside of the AOR relationship because they get fresh and divergent thinking, service, they get, in some cases, much better service because, as we talked about before, the client is more valuable to a small agency than they are to a big agency. And so each client is celebrated in their problem is anguished over and delivered with passion and conviction and great thinking. And so the other thing is that smaller agencies typically are happy to do any size project but they focus on results because they're smaller budgets and they're more important to the agency. So often we'll see big clients give smaller agencies projects with the intent of potentially growing the relationship over time. So one of the things, our industry is constantly changing. The success of large agencies came from great work they were all once small agencies, and there's a lot of noise praising large agencies, but success at every level, from the holding company to the large independent to the small agency, this is how agencies grow. And then the other piece is that small agencies are really important in the business world as expertise is becoming more and more preferred. So again, AgencySparks is really committed to connecting big brands or medium-sized brands with smaller independent agencies that are experts at their craft. We're not looking to work with agencies that are attempting to be an agency of record for all clients. Our focus is on the specialist that is best of breed in a couple of disciplines. One other thing, Seth Godin wrote a blog about small is the new big, and he says get small, think big is the big concept. And one of the things he says is that small means that the owner or the main executives are involved in the decision-making process, and that small is the new big only when the person running the small organization really thinks big. So that's it. I'm going to cut it off there. I encourage you to go to the AgencySparks blog and actually read the blog post. We republished Joe Parrish's post with his permission. Also, love to get your feedback. If there's anything that we should be covering here at the Marketing Mindset, if you have ideas for us, feel free to comment and give us your ideas about what we should cover. Again, we post these on both the Facebook page at AgencySparks, but also youtube.com/AgencySparks. And then you can always see past blog posts by going to AgencySparks.com/blog archives. So anyway, thanks for joining me again this week. Look forward to talking to you next week.